Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be demonstrating how I paint pink clouds. And right now I'm just showing you the materials I will be using to create this piece. As you can see, I'm using the colors titanium white, ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, and scarlet red. The paints are from the tabletop easel that you see here. They all came with the easel. I recently purchased it, and you can see that in my previous video. I will have the link for that video in the description box below. I am using the mixing knife that also came with the tabletop easel kit. And here I have the colors on, yes, a chopping board. It is a mini chopping board that I got from Target. Is this the most conventional way to mix paints? No, but it works for me. As you can see, I have used this palette many times and it has been poorly cleaned. I do not recommend you do this. However, I only use acrylic paints for this mixing palette, and I do make sure that the layers underneath the colors that I'm mixing are completely dry before I mix any fresh paint on it, so that there won't be any residue, debris, or old paint chips that's getting mixed into my new paint. So here I just went ahead and sped up the video. I hope you could see the process of me mixing the paints with the palette knife. So only using 4 colors, and I will go ahead and start with the background. So when starting any painting, it's best to start with the background. And because I'm using acrylic paint, the drying time will be really fast. By the time I begin painting the clouds, the background layer should be fairly dry. In this case, I have a sunset sky, so I will be blending a gradient of colors on the canvas. And to do that, you want to use thick layers of paint so that it's a nice smooth finish, and blending will be much easier. So with this type of skyline or this type of sunset sky, we're going to be showing an ombre effect of color, if you will, fading from a dark blue to a light pink. At least that's the look I preferred. Your sunset could look any kind of way. It can go from blue, purple, red, orange, yellow. It can go from starting at a red color, fading all the way to a yellow. Really, whatever your preference is, but just make sure that you're able to nicely blend the color changes. And blending is a lot easier while the paint is still wet. Again, acrylic paints dry fairly quickly, so it's best to paint the background in one sitting. Don't let it dry and go back to it, because blending is almost impossible at that point. With oil paints, not so much, but with acrylic, it just will be so dry that you'll end up just having to start all over. I'm using a flat, wide brush here for the background. Again, just to make a nice smooth finish, you want to make sure you use a nice wide brush so that the layers will be smooth and the colors will blend nicely. And again, you want to put the paint on really thick. To make that horizon line, you want to make sure you use the edge of the brush, as you see here, and just glide the paint right across the page. And you want to make sure it's nice and thick so that the line will be as straight as possible. Again, this was a fairly quick painting. I did not bother by using tape, but if you want a really nice straight line, just go ahead and place some masking tape on your canvas before painting so that you can make a nice clean line and then remove the tape before painting either the sky or the ocean. So as you can see here, the ocean is fairly dark, and that is the Prussian blue. I just used straight Prussian blue from a acrylic paint tube that I got from Walmart. It is the Academy brand and really affordable for any beginner painters out there. I do recommend you start off with more affordable paints before you invest in more advanced or professional materials. So just practice before making those investments. At least that's what I recommend. But hey, if you want to just start with the highest quality materials, that's totally respectable too and understandable. So here I went ahead and started to create the clouds, and I'm using a oval mop brush. I have a fairly wide oval mop brush here that I'm using. These brushes did not come with a kit as well. These are brushes that I already had, but I do recommend using the oval mop shaped brush when making clouds because it creates a nice airbrushed look, and you can create those nice soft edges that you would need when painting clouds. So when you are beginning painting clouds, you might think that you just need some white, poofy looking objects in the sky and call it a day. But really, you want to focus on the highlights and shadows. So here I have my source of light right on top of the clouds. So I'm putting my highlights on top of the clouds and my darker colors or my shadows underneath the clouds. And typically, when you see clouds that are bundled together, there will be areas where there are shadows in between the highlights. And so it just creates like a cluster of cloud effect, if you will. And I wanted my clouds to have really nice warm pink colors. So you will see that I will be building layers of highlights and shadows throughout this painting just to really create a dynamic effect for my sunset clouds. Or it could be a sunrise. Either way you look at it. But yeah, typically you see the sun right on the horizon, and you would think the source of light would be underneath the clouds. But I just decided to put my highlights on top of the clouds because it's just the look I wanted. So in nature, you want to think about how the sunlight would naturally be. In your paintings, you can think about how it would be in nature. However, with art, you can kind of defy those rules a bit. And I do like landscape and nature, but I also like to incorporate some surrealism. If you keep following me, you will see that I will be incorporating some fantasy creatures, fairies, mystical butterflies, and just a lot of magical stuff. I like to just look at my paintings and escape the real world for a bit. It's very therapeutic for me. Makes me happy, so I thought I would share this with you all so you can create your own little worlds to escape reality for a bit. So as you can see here, I am building the shadows and highlights. If you wanted to stop here, you could. However, I wasn't quite satisfied, so I just kept going. And I also want to point out on the horizon line on the left side there, I have some layers of trees on mountains. In the foreground, the trees are darkest, and in the background, they're a bit lighter. So often in landscapes, and this is what you would see in reality as well, the foreground would be darkest. So the silhouette would be darkest when closest in space. So it's implied that the darkest treetops there are closest in space. And the treetops that are a bit more faded behind the first layer are a bit further away. So it just creates this illusion of depth in space that's very important to incorporate in your landscapes to make it more realistic and more interesting to the viewer. But these clouds have just been made with those 4 colors that you saw in the beginning of the video: the white, Prussian blue, ultramarine blue, and scarlet red. So mixing the white and the red together would make a nice pink to mix for the highlights. And, you know, I actually use yellow as well. I had to incorporate yellow to create the peach color that I wanted for my clouds. And often when you see pink clouds, they will look a bit peach because it's picking up the sunlight. Right now I'm just adding in the reflection. You can't forget about reflections when there's a body of water. So I'll just be adding a faint reflection there. It won't be too detailed, just enough to hint that there is a reflection in the water. I personally didn't want to use the same exact colors from the sky in the ocean because I thought it would be a bit too distracting from the subject of the piece. At least for me personally, I wanted the viewer's focus to be in the skyline and just wanted to add enough reflection for the viewer to appreciate the detail. When thinking about the principles of design, I wanted the emphasis to be on the clouds in the sky and not in the water. So that's why I didn't want to use as much color in the water as I use in the sky, because I wanted the emphasis to be on the pink clouds in the sky and not in the water. The reflection should have been a bit sharper in the water. I just wanted mine to be faint because I wanted the emphasis to be on the clouds in the sky. Here I am adding the moon. Please excuse my arm in the way of the view there. I really probably should adjust my angle next time I make a painting. Again, this was very last minute, and I just really wanted to record this because I was excited about using this tabletop easel and didn't really think everything through. So I do apologize for the view angle. And here I'm just adding the moon. I'm adding a little crescent moon here above the clouds. That's kind of like my trademark, adding moonlight or a crescent moon or even a full moon in my paintings is quite common for me. You will see that if you keep following my videos. I just love the moon. I actually even thought about being an astronaut at some point. That was my childhood dream, I guess. But later in life, I just decided to go ahead and paint the moon and the stars so that I could see the moon whenever I wanted to. So this brush that I'm using now did come with the tabletop kit. I just needed a smaller brush to add this last minute detail. And I do want to point out that it is important to blend your colors. So even with the clouds, when I was adding the highlights and shadows, I made sure to blend those colors with midtones so that it would look more natural and well finished. Harsh lines really take away the realistic effect for landscape paintings. And again, it's really to your preference. I personally want to add realism to my paintings, even though I want to be more of a fantasy, surrealistic artist that adds elements in my landscapes that aren't from real life. But if you want to add different twists to your paintings and landscapes, like sharp lines and geometric shapes, that's really cool too. All right, and when adding stars, you want to just make sure you put thick paint on the tip of the brush and just gently tap the stars onto the canvas. Details really make a difference in your art piece. It just wasn't complete without adding this finishing touch. Thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed, and I will see you in the next video.